If you enjoyed this audiobook, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the book. Chapter 1, Seeds of Self-Belief. Part 1, The voice inside your inner voice carries more power than you might realize. It whispers judgments about your appearance before important meetings, questions your abilities when you consider new opportunities, and replays past failures when you need courage most. This constant mental chatter shapes how you see yourself and what you believe you can achieve. Understanding this voice, where it comes from, how it affects you, and how to work with it, can transform your relationship with confidence. Through practical insights and real stories, you'll learn to recognize your inner critic not as an enemy to defeat, but as a companion to understand and guide toward more compassionate self-talk. The voice inside your head never stops talking. Right now, as you read these words, it might be commenting on the content, questioning whether this advice will work for you, or reminding you of something you need to do later. This mental narrator has been with you since childhood, becoming so familiar that you rarely notice its presence. Consider how Rachel's inner voice operates during her morning routine. As she gets dressed for a job interview, it immediately critiques her appearance. This outfit makes you look unprofessional. You should have bought something new. Everyone will notice that stain on your shoe. By the time she arrives at the interview, her confidence has already taken multiple hits from this internal commentary. Most people assume this voice represents absolute truth about themselves. The reality is far different. Your inner critic developed through years of experiences, feedback from others, and attempts to protect you from potential harm or embarrassment. Understanding its origins helps you respond to it with wisdom rather than automatic acceptance. The roots of your inner voice often trace back to childhood experiences. Parents, teachers, and peers contributed commentary that gradually became internalized. If your third-grade teacher frequently corrected your handwriting, you might still hear criticism about your work being messy or not good enough decades later. These early messages created templates for how you evaluate yourself today. Marcus remembers his father's constant reminders to speak up and be more confident during family gatherings. While well-intentioned, these comments created an inner voice that now questions his communication skills in every meeting. The voice tells him he's too quiet, not assertive enough, and missing opportunities to make his mark. Past failures also feed your inner critic's arsenal. That presentation that went poorly 5 years ago still influences how you approach public speaking today. Your brain, designed to keep you safe, uses these memories to warn you about similar situations. The voice becomes hypervigilant, pointing out every possible way things could go wrong. What makes you believe your inner voice when it tells you negative things about yourself? Often, we give more weight to critical thoughts than encouraging ones because our brains are wired to notice potential threats. This negativity bias helped our ancestors survive dangerous environments, but in modern life, it can create unnecessary barriers to growth and confidence. Society also shapes your inner dialogue through constant messages about how you should look, act, and achieve. Social media amplifies these expectations, providing endless opportunities for comparison. Elena's inner voice became particularly harsh after spending time on professional networking sites where everyone seemed more successful, more confident, and more accomplished than she felt. The good news is that your inner voice can change. The same neuroplasticity that allowed it to develop means it can be reshaped through conscious effort and practice. The goal isn't to silence this voice completely. That's neither possible nor desirable. Instead, you can learn to work with it more skillfully. Start by simply noticing when your inner critic speaks up. What situations trigger its commentary? What tone does it use? Is it the voice of a particular person from your past, or does it sound like you? Awareness is the first step toward transformation. James discovered his inner voice sounded remarkably like his college debate coach. Stern, perfectionistic, and never satisfied with his performance. Once he recognized this connection, he could separate his coach's standards from his own values and goals. The voice was still there, but it no longer carried the same authority. Practice observing your inner dialogue with curiosity rather than judgment. When you catch yourself thinking, "I'm terrible at this," or "I'll never figure this out," pause and ask yourself, "Is this thought helpful right now? What would I say to a good friend in this situation? How can I reframe this with more compassion?" Your inner critic often tries to protect you from disappointment or rejection by lowering your expectations or avoiding risks altogether. While this protection served a purpose, it may now limit your growth. Learning to distinguish between helpful caution and unnecessary self-sabotage allows you to make better decisions about when to listen and when to gently redirect the conversation. Sometimes your inner voice raises valid concerns that deserve attention. If it warns you about being unprepared for an important presentation, that's useful feedback. The key is learning to receive this input without the harsh, demoralizing tone that often accompanies it. Transform your relationship with this voice by responding as you would to a concerned friend who tends to worry too much. You can acknowledge the concern while maintaining your own perspective. Instead of accepting, "You're going to mess this up," as fact, you might respond internally with, "I understand you're worried about this presentation. Let me prepare thoroughly so we both feel more confident." The most confident people haven't silenced their inner critics. They've learned to work with them constructively. They recognize that everyone has doubts and concerns, but they don't let these voices make all the decisions. Building this skill takes practice, patience, and self-compassion. Your inner voice will always be part of your mental landscape. By understanding its origins, recognizing its patterns, and responding with kindness rather than resistance, you transform it from a harsh critic into a more supportive companion on your confidence journey. Part 2. Stories we tell ourselves. Our minds are masterful storytellers, constantly weaving narratives about who we are and what we can achieve. These stories shape every decision we make, every opportunity we pursue, and every risk we take. Yet most of us are unaware that we're both the author and the audience of these internal tales. The stories we tell ourselves about our abilities, our worth, and our potential become the blueprint for our reality. Understanding how to identify these narratives and rewrite the limiting ones can transform your confidence from the inside out, turning self-doubt into self-belief through the simple act of changing your internal script. Every person carries a collection of stories about themselves. Some stories lift us up while others hold us back. Take Emma, a talented graphic designer who spent years telling herself she wasn't creative enough to start her own business. Her story went like this: "I'm just not the entrepreneurial type. I'm better at following directions than leading." This narrative kept her in a job she had outgrown for 5 years. The problem wasn't Emma's abilities. Her portfolio spoke for itself. The problem was the story she had constructed based on one failed attempt at selling her artwork in college. That single experience had grown into a defining narrative about her limitations. Our personal stories often begin with real events, but they rarely stay factual. We add interpretations, assumptions, and predictions that transform isolated incidents into sweeping truths about our character. When Marcus failed his first driving test at 16, he told himself he was bad at anything mechanical. 20 years later, he still avoided learning to fix basic household items, convinced he lacked the necessary skills. These stories become so familiar that we rarely question their accuracy. They feel like facts rather than interpretations. But here's what research shows. Our brains are prediction machines, not recording devices. They create narratives that help us make sense of the world, but these narratives are flexible and changeable. Consider how differently Emma's story could read. "I learned valuable lessons from my early attempts at selling art. Those experiences taught me about business in ways that will help me succeed now." Same facts, completely different implications for her confidence and future actions. The most limiting stories often follow predictable patterns. They use absolute language like always and never. They generalize from specific incidents to broad character traits. They predict the future based on past events. Most importantly, they position us as powerless rather than capable of growth and change. What story have you been telling yourself about your abilities that might need editing? Successful people aren't immune to negative self-stories. They've simply learned to recognize and rewrite them. Oprah Winfrey has spoken openly about growing up with a story that she wasn't worthy of love or success. Instead of accepting this narrative, she consciously chose to rewrite it, focusing on her ability to connect with others and create positive change. The rewriting process begins with awareness. Start paying attention to the language you use when describing yourself and your capabilities. Notice the difference between "I'm terrible at public speaking" and "I'm still developing my public speaking skills." The first statement closes doors, the second opens them. Rachel, a software engineer, discovered she had been telling herself she was just a behind-the-scenes person who couldn't handle leadership roles. When her manager suggested her for a team lead position, her immediate reaction was to decline. But instead of automatically saying no, she paused to examine this story. She realized her narrative was based on being quiet in school and preferring small groups to large ones. But being introverted didn't mean she lacked leadership potential. She reframed her story. "I'm a thoughtful leader who prefers meaningful conversations to small talk." Narrative helped her accept the promotion and excel in her new role. The key to rewriting limiting stories lies in finding evidence that contradicts them. If you tell yourself you're not creative, list 5 times you solved problems in unique ways. If you believe you're not good with people, recall moments when you comforted a friend or helped a colleague. These contradictions reveal the gaps in your limiting narratives. Your past experiences are data points, not destiny. They inform your story but don't have to define it. When James was passed over for a promotion, his first instinct was to add this to his existing story. "I'm not management material." Instead, he chose to investigate what skills he needed to develop and created a new narrative. "I'm building the experience necessary for leadership roles." Consider the difference between these two approaches to the same situation. The first story ends the conversation. The second begins a journey of growth. This shift in narrative doesn't ignore reality. It reframes setbacks as information rather than verdicts. The most empowering stories acknowledge challenges while maintaining agency. Instead of "I failed because I'm not smart enough," try "I didn't have the right strategy that time and now I know what to adjust." This subtle change preserves your power to improve and try again. How might your current challenges look different if you viewed them as plot developments rather than final chapters? Language shapes reality more than most people realize. The words you use to describe yourself create neural pathways that influence your behavior. When you repeatedly tell yourself you're not a math person, your brain starts to believe it and stops trying as hard at mathematical tasks. Dr. Carol Dweck's research on mindset reveals how powerful these internal narratives can be. Students who were taught to view intelligence as changeable rather than fixed showed dramatic improvements in academic performance. The only difference was the story they told themselves about their abilities. Your new story doesn't have to be unrealistically positive. It just needs to be more accurate and empowering. Instead of "I'm hopeless at networking," you might say, "I'm learning to connect with people in professional settings." The second version acknowledges current limitations while leaving room for growth. Tom, an accountant who dreaded client meetings, transformed his self-story from "I'm awkward with people" to "I communicate differently than some people, and that can be an asset." This reframe helped him recognize that his methodical, detail-oriented communication style was exactly what anxious clients needed. His perceived weakness became a professional strength once he changed his narrative. The process of rewriting your story requires patience and repetition. Old narratives don't disappear overnight. They've had years to establish themselves in your thinking patterns. But every time you catch yourself using limiting language and consciously choose more empowering words, you strengthen new neural pathways. Start small with stories that feel manageable to change. If you always say you're terrible with technology, begin referring to yourself as someone who's learning new tech skills. Notice how this slight adjustment affects your willingness to try new digital tools or ask for help when needed. Your story is not a historical document that must remain unchanged. It's a living narrative that you can edit, revise, and improve. The most confident people understand this deeply. They see themselves as the authors of their own experience, capable of writing new chapters regardless of how previous ones unfolded. What new chapter are you ready to begin writing in your confidence story? Part 3. Embracing imperfection. Accepting your flaws might seem like giving up, but research shows it's actually the fastest path to genuine confidence. When you stop fighting against your imperfections and start working with them, you free up enormous mental energy that was previously wasted on self-criticism and hiding. This shift transforms how you approach challenges, relationships, and opportunities. Instead of waiting until you're perfect enough to take action, you begin moving forward with the understanding that growth happens through doing, not through endless preparation or self-improvement. Elena had always been the type of person who rewrote emails 5 times before sending them. She would rehearse conversations in her head, checking every word for potential mistakes. When her company asked her to present at a quarterly meeting, she spent weeks perfecting slides, memorizing her speech, and imagining every possible question. The night before the presentation, she was so anxious about making mistakes that she barely slept. The presentation went well, but Elena realized something important afterward. Her colleagues weren't looking for perfection. They wanted authenticity and useful information. The small stumble she made when switching slides actually made her seem more relatable, not less competent. Her boss later told her that her genuine enthusiasm for the project came through clearly, which mattered more than flawless delivery. Perfectionism creates an impossible standard that nobody can meet consistently. When you demand perfection from yourself, you're essentially setting up a system where you'll always fall short. This constant failure to meet unrealistic expectations erodes confidence over time, creating a cycle where you become increasingly reluctant to try new things or take risks. Research in psychology shows that people who accept their imperfections actually perform better than those who demand perfection from themselves. This happens because acceptance reduces the mental load of constant self-monitoring and criticism. When you're not spending energy worrying about making mistakes, you can focus that energy on actually doing good work. Think about the people you most admire in your life. Do you respect them because they never make mistakes or because of how they handle challenges and setbacks? Most likely, it's the latter. We're drawn to people who are real, who admit when they don't know something, and who can laugh at their own mistakes while still maintaining their dignity. Consider Marcus, a software developer who used to spend hours checking and rechecking his code before submitting it. He was terrified of bugs appearing in production, so he would test everything multiple times and delay releases. His perfectionist approach actually made him less effective because his projects were always behind schedule. When his team adopted a philosophy of good enough to ship, then improve, Marcus learned to release functional code that could be refined later. This approach not only improved his productivity, but also his confidence, as he realized that perfection wasn't necessary for success. The fear of judgment keeps many people trapped in perfectionist patterns. You might think that if you can just present a flawless version of yourself, others will accept and respect you more. But the opposite is often true. People connect with authenticity, not perfection. When you allow others to see your genuine self, including your struggles and imperfections, you give them permission to be real too. What would change in your daily life if you stopped trying to hide your flaws and started viewing them as part of your unique character? Self-compassion forms the foundation of this shift. Instead of treating yourself harshly when you make mistakes, practice responding to yourself the way you would respond to a good friend. When your friend makes an error, you probably don't berate them or tell them they're worthless. You might acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes and encourage them to learn from the experience. This same approach works with yourself. When you notice yourself being self-critical, pause and ask what you would say to someone you care about in the same situation. This simple practice helps break the habit of harsh self-judgment and replaces it with a more balanced, supportive inner voice. Rachel discovered this principle during her first year as a teacher. She made numerous mistakes, forgot to grade assignments on time, mixed up student names, and occasionally lost her temper with disruptive students. Instead of beating herself up about these errors, she started treating them as learning opportunities. She would reflect on what went wrong, make adjustments, and move forward without carrying the weight of self-criticism. This approach helped her become a more effective teacher because she could focus on improvement rather than self-punishment. Practical implementation starts with small, daily practices. Begin by identifying one area where you've been demanding perfection from yourself. This might be your appearance, your work output, your parenting, or your social interactions. For the next week, consciously lower your standards in this area from perfect to good enough. If you typically spend 30 minutes getting ready in the morning, try spending 20 minutes and notice what happens. If you usually rewrite texts multiple times before sending them, try sending your first or second draft. Pay attention to the outcomes. You'll likely discover that the results are barely different, but your stress levels decrease significantly. The goal isn't to become careless or stop trying to do well. It's to find the sweet spot where you put in appropriate effort without the exhausting pursuit of impossibility. This balance allows you to be more productive and creative because you're not paralyzed by the fear of imperfection. Creating boundaries around perfectionist behavior helps solidify this practice. Set time limits for tasks that you typically over-polish. Give yourself permission to submit work that meets the requirements without being flawless. Practice saying, "This is good enough," when you notice yourself getting caught in improvement loops that aren't adding meaningful value. Your imperfections are not obstacles to confidence. They're proof that you're human, that you're trying, and that you're growing. The most confident people aren't those who never make mistakes. They're those who make mistakes, learn from them, and keep moving forward without letting those mistakes define their worth. How might your relationships improve if you allowed people to see and accept the real you, imperfections included? Part 4. The Power of Yet. The simple addition of one tiny word can revolutionize how you think about your abilities and potential. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't do this," or "I'm not good at this," adding "yet" to the end transforms a permanent statement into a temporary condition. This shift in language reflects a fundamental change in how you view challenges, setbacks, and your own capacity for growth. The power of "yet" lies in its ability to keep doors open when your mind wants to slam them shut, creating space for possibility where frustration once lived. Emma stared at her computer screen, frustrated after her third failed attempt at creating a presentation for work. "I'm terrible at public speaking," she muttered. Her colleague David overheard and gently suggested, "What if you said you're not good at public speaking yet?" This small change sparked something in Emma. Instead of accepting defeat, she began researching presentation techniques, joined a local speaking club, and practiced regularly. 6 months later, she delivered a presentation that earned praise from her entire team. The difference between "I can't" and "I can't yet" is the difference between a closed door and one that's simply locked for now. When you use language that assumes your current abilities are permanent, you create what researchers call a fixed mindset. This mindset treats intelligence, talent, and skills as unchangeable traits. However, when you add "yet" to your self-assessments, you activate what's known as a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can develop through effort, learning, and persistence. Consider Marcus, a restaurant owner who struggled with managing his finances. Initially, he told himself, "I'm just not a numbers person." This belief kept him from engaging with his business's financial aspects, leading to stress and poor decisions. When a mentor introduced him to the concept of "yet," Marcus began saying, "I'm not good with numbers yet." This shift motivated him to take a basic accounting course, use financial software, and gradually build his confidence with numbers. Within a year, he was actively managing his restaurant's budget and making informed financial decisions. The magic of "yet" works because it acknowledges your current reality while maintaining hope for future growth. It's honest about where you are now without being harsh about where you might go. This balance is crucial for building confidence because it prevents both denial and despair. What areas of your life would change if you added "yet" to your current limitations? Research shows that people who adopt growth mindset language perform better under pressure, recover faster from setbacks, and show greater resilience when facing challenges. When a professional athlete says, I haven't mastered this technique yet. Instead of I'm bad at this, they're more likely to seek coaching, practice harder, and ultimately improve their performance. The word yet also changes how you process failure and mistakes. Instead of viewing them as evidence of your inadequacy, you begin to see them as data points on your learning journey. When Rosa first started her food blog, her photos looked amateur compared to established bloggers. Rather than concluding she wasn't creative, she told herself she hadn't developed her photography skills yet. This mindset led her to watch tutorials, experiment with lighting, and practice regularly. Today, her food photography attracts thousands of followers who appreciate her unique style. Building the yet habit requires conscious practice. Start by catching yourself when you make absolute statements about your abilities. Notice when you say things like, "I always mess this up," or "I never get it right." These statements close off possibilities for growth and improvement. Replace these fixed statements with growth-oriented alternatives. Instead of, "I'm not creative," try, "I haven't found my creative outlet yet." Rather than, "I'm bad with technology," consider, "I'm still learning to use technology effectively." This isn't about lying to yourself or ignoring real challenges. It's about maintaining an accurate perspective that includes your potential for development. The practice becomes easier when you remember that everyone starts somewhere. The most skilled professionals in any field were once beginners who couldn't perform their craft yet. The surgeon, who now performs complex operations, couldn't operate yet when she started medical school. The chef whose restaurant wins awards couldn't cook professionally yet when he first picked up a knife. How might your relationships improve if you applied yet thinking to others as well as yourself? Sometimes people resist the yet approach because they fear it might lead to unrealistic expectations or endless frustration. This concern misses an important point. Yet doesn't promise that you'll master everything you attempt. It simply keeps the possibility open while you explore what you're capable of achieving. Take Lily, who always wanted to learn piano but convinced herself she was too old to start music. When she reframed this as, "I haven't learned piano yet," she felt permission to try. She discovered that while she might not become a concert pianist, she could learn to play songs she enjoyed and experience the joy of making music. The yet mindset didn't create false hopes. It created space for authentic exploration and achievement at her own level. The confidence that grows from yet thinking is different from confidence based on already being good at something. It's the confidence to try, to fail, to learn, and to try again. This type of confidence is more stable because it doesn't depend on perfect performance or immediate success. When you adopt yet language, you join the ranks of lifelong learners who understand that growth never really stops. You become someone who sees challenges as puzzles to solve rather than threats to avoid. Most importantly, you give yourself permission to be imperfect while working toward improvement, creating a sustainable foundation for lasting confidence. Your current limitations are not your permanent address. They're simply where you live right now on your journey of growth and discovery. Chapter 2, Facing the Mirror. Part 1, Accepting the Real You. Authentic confidence begins when you stop trying to be who you think you should be and start accepting who you actually are. Most people spend years wearing masks, trying to fit into boxes others have created for them. This exhausting performance drains energy and prevents genuine connections. True self-acceptance means looking at yourself with honest eyes, seeing both your gifts and your flaws, and making peace with the whole picture. When you accept your real self, something magical happens. You stop wasting energy on pretense and start channeling it into growth. This shift creates the foundation for unshakable confidence that comes from within, not from external validation. Emma worked in marketing for 6 years, always trying to be the person she thought would get promoted. She spoke in meetings only when she had perfect ideas, dressed exactly like her boss, and never shared her quirky sense of humor. Despite her efforts, she felt invisible and passed over. The breakthrough came during a team retreat when a power outage forced everyone to share stories by candlelight. Emma relaxed and told a funny story about her weekend disaster trying to build furniture. Everyone laughed, and suddenly she felt seen. Her colleagues started seeking her input more often, and within months, she received the promotion she had been chasing. Self-acceptance requires honest self-assessment without the harsh inner critic. When you look in the mirror, both literally and figuratively, what do you see? Most people immediately focus on flaws, creating a mental list of everything wrong. This habit destroys confidence before it can take root. Instead, practice neutral observation. Notice your tendencies, patterns, and characteristics as you would observe a friend. Your impatience might also drive your ability to solve problems quickly. Your sensitivity could be the source of your empathy and connection with others. What would change in your life if you stopped hiding the parts of yourself you think are imperfect? Carlos grew up believing his accent made him sound less intelligent. He practiced speaking like news anchors and avoided participating in presentations. At 35, he finally realized he was exhausting himself, trying to sound like someone else. He started speaking naturally in meetings, sharing his perspective without worrying about pronunciation. His unique viewpoint, combined with his authentic communication style, made him memorable. Clients specifically requested him for projects, saying his approach felt genuine and trustworthy. The comparison trap keeps you focused on becoming someone else, rather than becoming the best version of yourself. Social media makes this worse by showing highlight reels of others while you experience your behind-the-scenes reality. When Maya found herself scrolling through fitness influencers' posts feeling terrible about her body, she realized she was comparing her beginning to their middle. She unfollowed accounts that made her feel bad and started following people who shared realistic journeys. This simple change helped her focus on her own progress rather than measuring herself against impossible standards. Accepting yourself includes acknowledging your current limitations while remaining open to growth. This balance prevents both arrogance and self-deprecation. When Jake started his own business, he knew he lacked experience in financial management. Instead of pretending to know everything or feeling ashamed of his knowledge gaps, he hired an accountant and took a basic finance course. His willingness to admit what he didn't know and take action to learn impressed investors and clients who appreciated his honesty and commitment to improvement. How would your relationships change if you showed up as your authentic self instead of trying to be who you think others want you to be? The process of self-acceptance happens gradually through small daily practices. Start by noticing when you put on a mask or change your behavior to fit in. Ask yourself, am I being genuine right now, or am I performing? This awareness creates space for choice. You can decide to share your real opinion in a meeting or admit when you don't understand something. Each authentic moment builds confidence muscle. Research shows that authentic people experience less anxiety and depression while building stronger relationships. When Lisa stopped pretending to love networking events and started being honest about her introversion, she found better ways to connect with people. She scheduled coffee meetings instead of attending large mixers, played to her strength of deep one-on-one conversations, and built a more genuine professional network. Accepting your real self doesn't mean giving up on growth or improvement. It means starting from a place of truth rather than pretense. When you know your actual starting point, you can create realistic goals and celebrate genuine progress. This honesty becomes the foundation for sustainable confidence that doesn't crumble when faced with challenges or criticism. Your authentic self is not a weakness to overcome, but a strength to develop. The world needs what you specifically bring, not another copy of someone else. Part 2. Letting go of comparison. Comparison is the silent thief of confidence that infiltrates our daily thoughts before we even realize what's happening. Every time we scroll through social media, attend a work meeting, or simply walk down the street, our brains automatically measure our lives against others. This mental habit might seem harmless, but it creates a constant background noise of inadequacy that slowly erodes our sense of self-worth. Understanding why we compare ourselves to others and learning practical strategies to break this pattern can free us from unnecessary suffering and redirect our energy toward meaningful personal growth. Consider Emma, a talented graphic designer who loved her work until she joined a professional online community. Within weeks, she felt completely inadequate. Every post showcased someone else's award-winning project, dream vacation, or career milestone. Emma began questioning her abilities and avoiding sharing her own work. The irony was that Emma's colleagues regularly praised her creativity, yet she couldn't see her own value through the fog of constant comparison. Our brains are wired for comparison as a survival mechanism. Thousands of years ago, knowing where we stood in the group meant the difference between safety and danger. Today, this same mental process causes unnecessary stress when we apply it to modern life. We compare our behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel, forgetting that we only see carefully curated glimpses of other people's lives. The problem intensifies because comparison always puts us in a losing position. There will always be someone smarter, more attractive, wealthier, or more successful in specific areas. When we measure our worth against others, we're essentially agreeing to feel inadequate forever. This mindset traps us in a cycle where external validation becomes our primary source of confidence. Marcus discovered this truth during his first year as a small business owner. He constantly checked competitor websites, feeling discouraged by their apparent success. His energy went into worrying about what others were doing instead of improving his own services. Once Marcus realized this pattern, he implemented a simple rule. Spend time on your own progress before looking at anyone else's. This shift transformed both his mindset and his business results. The comparison trap becomes especially dangerous when we compare our struggles to other people's successes. We might see a colleague receive a promotion while we're dealing with personal challenges, leading us to believe we're falling behind. This thinking ignores the reality that everyone faces different circumstances and timelines. What would change in your life if you focused exclusively on your own progress for the next month? This question often reveals how much mental energy we waste on comparison instead of channeling it into personal development. Breaking free from comparison requires intentional strategies that redirect our attention inward. The first step involves recognizing when comparison thoughts arise. Notice the feeling of inadequacy that follows seeing someone else's achievement. Instead of pushing these thoughts away, acknowledge them without judgment and ask yourself what they reveal about your own desires and goals. Rachel used this approach when she felt envious of a friend's career change. Rather than dismissing her feelings, Rachel explored what the envy revealed about her own dissatisfaction with her current job. This self-reflection led her to pursue additional training and eventually make her own successful career transition. The comparison that initially caused pain became a compass pointing toward her true desires. Gratitude practice offers another powerful antidote to comparison. When we actively appreciate what we have, it becomes harder to focus on what we lack compared to others. This doesn't mean settling for less or avoiding growth. Instead, gratitude creates a foundation of contentment from which we can pursue goals without the desperate energy that comparison creates. Try this exercise. Each morning, write down 3 specific things you're grateful for about your current situation. Include details about why these matter to you personally. This practice trains your brain to notice abundance rather than scarcity. Shifting from comparison to inspiration requires changing how we view other people's success. Instead of seeing achievements as evidence of our own inadequacy, we can use them as proof that goals are achievable. When someone accomplishes something we want, they become a roadmap rather than a reason for discouragement. David transformed his relationship with comparison when he stopped viewing other runners as competition and started seeing them as inspiration. During races, instead of feeling defeated by faster runners, he began asking successful athletes for training advice. This mindset shift not only improved his performance, but created meaningful friendships within the running community. Supporting others becomes easier when we're not constantly measuring ourselves against them. Genuine celebration of other people's wins actually builds our own confidence because it reinforces an abundance mindset. There's enough success for everyone, and cheering for others doesn't diminish our own potential. How often do you genuinely celebrate someone else's achievement without immediately thinking about your own situation? This reflection reveals whether comparison is still driving your reactions to others' success. Creating personal metrics for success helps reduce external comparison. Instead of measuring your worth against societal standards or other people's achievements, develop criteria based on your values and circumstances. These might include effort invested, skills developed, relationships nurtured, or obstacles overcome. Lisa stopped feeling inadequate about her career after creating personal success metrics. While her peers focused on salary increases and promotions, Lisa valued work-life balance and meaningful projects. Once she clearly defined success for herself, she felt confident about choices that previously caused self-doubt. The practice of self-reflection strengthens your ability to stay focused on personal growth. Regular check-ins with yourself about progress, challenges, and lessons learned create a rich internal dialogue that matters more than external comparisons. This habit builds self-awareness and helps you make decisions aligned with your authentic goals rather than reactions to what others are doing. Remember that comparison often reveals important information about our deeper desires. Instead of avoiding these feelings, use them as data about what matters to you. The key is processing this information without the emotional charge that typically accompanies comparison. When we stop comparing ourselves to others, we free up enormous mental and emotional energy for actual growth. This energy can fuel creativity, relationship building, skill development, and the pursuit of meaningful goals. The confidence that emerges from this internal focus is sustainable because it doesn't depend on being better than anyone else. It comes from the satisfaction of becoming more fully yourself. Part 3. Turning fear into fuel. Fear sits in the corner of every room where growth happens. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid this unwelcome guest, but what if fear could become your most reliable coach? This section transforms your relationship with fear from enemy to ally. You will learn to recognize fear's signals, decode its messages, and channel its energy into forward motion. Through real stories and practical techniques, you will discover how to turn paralyzing anxiety into powerful action, building unshakable confidence one brave step at a time. Fear knocked on Elena's door every morning for 3 months. She had been laid off from her corporate job and knew she needed to start networking, but the thought of walking into rooms full of strangers made her stomach churn. Each day, she told herself she would make those calls tomorrow. Fear whispered that she wasn't smart enough, experienced enough, or connected enough to succeed. For Elena, fear felt like a wall blocking her path forward. Then something shifted. Elena began to notice that her fear always spiked right before opportunities that mattered most to her. The networking event that terrified her was exactly where she needed to be. The job interview that made her hands shake was the position she truly wanted. Fear, she realized, was not random noise but a precise signal pointing toward her growth edge. This recognition changed everything. When fear showed up, Elena started asking different questions. Instead of, "How can I avoid this feeling?" she wondered, "What is this fear trying to tell me?" The answer was always the same. This matters to you, and it is worth pursuing despite the discomfort. Fear serves as an internal compass that points toward what we value most. Research shows that we only feel afraid of things that matter to us. You do not experience anxiety about missing opportunities you do not care about. The intensity of your fear often correlates directly with the importance of the action you are avoiding. Marcus discovered this truth when he kept postponing his application to graduate school. For 2 years, he made excuses about timing, finances, and preparation. When he finally examined his fear closely, he found it was not about the application process itself. His fear revealed how desperately he wanted to be accepted, how much this next step meant to his future, and how devastating rejection would feel because the dream mattered so deeply. The traditional view treats fear and courage as opposites, but this creates an impossible standard. True courage is not the absence of fear, but action in its presence. Every confident person you admire has felt afraid. The difference lies not in their emotional experience, but in their response to that experience. Consider how your body responds to fear. Your heart rate increases, providing more oxygen to your muscles. Your attention sharpens, filtering out distractions. Your energy levels spike, preparing you for action. These are not symptoms of weakness, but biological preparations for peak performance. Athletes call this feeling getting amped up. Public speakers know it as being ready. The physical sensations of fear and excitement are nearly identical. What specific fears have been following you around lately? Notice them without judgment, as if you were a scientist observing interesting data. The key to transforming fear lies in changing your interpretation of these sensations. When Rachel felt her hands trembling before her first public presentation, she used to think, "I am too nervous to do this well." Now she thinks, "My body is getting ready to perform." This simple reframe allowed her to channel that energy into a dynamic, engaging presentation instead of fighting against her natural responses. Fear often carries important information about what needs attention in your life. James noticed he felt anxious every time his boss scheduled one-on-one meetings. Instead of dismissing this as workplace nervousness, he explored what the fear was telling him. He realized he had been avoiding difficult conversations about his career goals and felt unprepared to advocate for himself. His fear was highlighting a skill gap that needed addressing. This process requires honest self-examination. Fear sometimes reveals that you are pushing yourself appropriately toward growth. Other times it signals that you need more preparation, support, or information before taking action. Learning to distinguish between these messages takes practice, but leads to more strategic decision-making. Creating a fear inventory helps clarify these patterns. List the situations that consistently trigger anxiety for you. Next to each item, write what this fear might be protecting or what it reveals about your values. This exercise often shows that your biggest fears cluster around your most important goals. The path from fear to fuel involves 3 practical steps. First, acknowledge the fear without trying to eliminate it. Fighting fear only amplifies its power. Instead, notice it with curiosity. I am feeling afraid right now, and that is information worth considering. Second, decode the message your fear is sending. Ask yourself what this fear reveals about what matters to you or what it is trying to protect. Often, fear highlights either something precious that could be lost or something valuable that could be gained. Third, use fear as a guide for action rather than a reason for avoidance. If fear points towards something important, move toward it with appropriate preparation and support. This does not mean being reckless, but rather being strategic about engaging with what scares you. Lisa used this process when she felt terrified about starting her own consulting business. She acknowledged her fear of financial insecurity and professional failure. The message was clear: financial stability and professional respect mattered deeply to her. Instead of letting fear stop her, she used it to guide thorough preparation. She built up 6 months of expenses, networked extensively in her field, and developed a detailed business plan. Fear informed her strategy rather than paralyzing her progress. Every time you act despite feeling afraid, you build evidence of your own capability. This evidence becomes the foundation of genuine confidence. You cannot think your way to courage, but you can act your way there. Small acts of bravery compound over time. Answer the phone when you see an unknown number. Speak up in meetings when you have something to contribute. Try the restaurant that serves unfamiliar cuisine. Each small step in the presence of minor fear strengthens your capacity to handle bigger challenges with grace. The goal is not to become fearless, but to become fear-friendly. When you stop viewing fear as the enemy, you free up enormous energy that was previously spent in resistance. This energy becomes available for creativity, problem-solving, and forward movement toward your most meaningful goals. Part 4. The courage to begin. The hardest part about building confidence is not the grand gestures or major achievements. It is the simple act of starting. Every confident person you admire once stood exactly where you are now, facing the blank page, the empty gym, or the phone call they needed to make. What separates them is not talent, luck, or special circumstances. It is their willingness to begin before they felt ready. This section explores how taking the first step, however small, creates the momentum that transforms hesitation into action and doubt into determination. Maya stared at her laptop screen for 3 weeks. She had a business idea that excited her, but the voice in her head kept whispering reasons to wait. She needed more research, better skills, perfect timing. Meanwhile, her friend Carlos downloaded a website builder and launched his photography side business in 2 hours. 6 months later, Carlos had his first paying clients while Maya was still researching the perfect business plan template. The difference between Maya and Carlos illustrates a fundamental truth about confidence. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Carlos did not start because he felt confident. He felt confident because he started. His rough first website taught him more about his business in 1 week than Maya learned from months of planning. Most people believe they need to feel ready before they begin. This backwards thinking keeps millions of dreams locked in someday land. Research shows that confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from practice. You cannot practice without starting, and you cannot start while waiting for perfect conditions. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. No amount of reading about balance or watching videos prepared you for that first wobble down the sidewalk. The confidence came from falling, getting back up, and trying again. Each attempt taught your body something new until riding became second nature. The same principle applies to every area of life. Emma wanted to become a public speaker, but felt terrified of audiences. Instead of enrolling in a speaking course, she started by recording herself talking to her phone. After a month, she shared a video with her sister. 2 months later, she volunteered to give a presentation at work. By year-end, she was leading workshops for her department. Each tiny step built evidence that she could do this. What goal have you been postponing because you do not feel ready enough? Perfectionism disguises itself as high standards, but it actually functions as a sophisticated form of procrastination. When you demand perfection before starting, you guarantee that you will never begin. Perfect is the enemy of done, and done is the enemy of never started. James wanted to write a novel but kept rewriting the first chapter. He spent 8 months crafting those opening pages while his friend Lisa wrote an entire first draft. Was Lisa's draft perfect? Absolutely not. But she had something to work with, edit, and improve. James had beautiful sentences that led nowhere. The myth of perfect timing affects everyone. Janet waited for the right moment to start exercising until she realized there would always be a work deadline, family obligation, or seasonal excuse. She finally bought running shoes on a rainy Tuesday in November, the worst possible time according to her previous logic. That imperfect start led to her first marathon 2 years later. Breaking the perfection trap requires embracing the concept of good enough to start. Your first attempt does not need to be your best attempt. It just needs to exist. You can improve something that exists. You cannot improve something that remains trapped in your imagination. Consider the 2-minute rule for overcoming starting resistance. Commit to working on your goal for just 2 minutes. Want to write? Set a timer and write for 2 minutes. Want to exercise? Put on workout clothes and stretch for 2 minutes. This tiny commitment often leads to longer sessions, but even if it does not, you have succeeded in starting. Rachel used this approach to tackle her cluttered home office. 2 minutes of sorting papers each morning seemed insignificant, but after a month, her desk was clear. More importantly, she had built the habit of beginning. The confidence from this small success motivated her to apply the same approach to organizing her entire house. The power of micro-starts extends beyond personal goals. Tom wanted to change careers but felt overwhelmed by the process. Instead of planning his entire transition, he spent 2 minutes each day reading one article about his target industry. Those brief reading sessions led to clearer understanding, which led to informational interviews, which led to his new job 8 months later. Starting creates momentum, and momentum solves problems that stopping cannot. When you are moving forward, you encounter real obstacles that demand real solutions. When you are standing still, you encounter imaginary obstacles that create imaginary solutions. How could you apply the 2-minute rule to something you have been avoiding? Confidence builds through accumulation of evidence. Each time you start something, you prove to yourself that starting is possible. This evidence becomes a resource you can access when facing future challenges. Linda discovered this when she forced herself to attend a networking event despite feeling anxious. The evening was not perfect, but she survived and even enjoyed parts of it. When the next invitation arrived, she remembered her evidence. I have done this before, and I can do it again. The celebration of beginnings matters more than most people realize. Society celebrates completions. graduations, promotions, finished projects. But completions are impossible without beginnings, and beginnings deserve recognition too. When you start something, you have already won a victory against inertia, fear, and the comfort zone. Mark wanted to learn guitar but felt embarrassed about being a beginner at age 40. His first lesson was awkward and frustrating. Instead of focusing on his mistakes, he celebrated the fact that he had finally started. That celebration carried him through the difficult early weeks when progress felt slow. 5 years later, he plays with a local band, but he still remembers that first lesson as his biggest victory. Creating a starting ritual helps overcome the resistance that appears before beginning. This ritual can be as simple as clearing your desk, making tea, or taking 3 deep breaths. The specific actions matter less than the consistency. Your brain learns to associate the ritual with starting, making future beginnings easier. Sarah developed a starting ritual for her writing practice. She would light a candle, open her laptop, and write one sentence. Often that single sentence became paragraphs or pages. But even on days when she only wrote one sentence, she honored her commitment to begin. This gentle approach built her confidence as a writer without the pressure of producing masterpieces. The courage to begin grows stronger with practice. Like any skill, starting becomes easier the more you do it. Your first beginning might feel terrifying, but your 100th beginning will feel routine. This progression happens naturally when you focus on starting rather than finishing perfectly. Remember that confidence follows action, not the reverse. You do not need to feel confident to begin. You need to begin to feel confident. Every small start is a deposit in your confidence account, earning compound interest that pays dividends for years to come. Your next chapter starts with your next beginning. What will you start today? Chapter 3, Small Steps, Big Leaps. Part 1, Tiny Wins. Building confidence feels like trying to climb a mountain when you're standing at the bottom looking up. The peak seems impossibly far away, and the path ahead looks overwhelming. But what if the secret to reaching that peak isn't about taking giant leaps, but about celebrating every small step forward? This section reveals how tiny wins create the foundation for lasting confidence, transforming your mindset from focusing on distant goals to finding power in daily victories. You'll discover practical methods to track progress, celebrate small achievements, and build momentum that carries you toward bigger successes with genuine self-assurance. The power of tiny wins lies in their ability to create immediate proof of your capabilities. When Elena started her fitness journey, she felt intimidated by people running marathons and lifting heavy weights at the gym. Instead of setting a goal to run 5 miles, she committed to walking around her block once each morning. That first week, she celebrated completing 7 walks. The second week, she added an extra block. Within a month, she was jogging short distances. Each small victory built evidence that she was someone who could stick to commitments and improve over time. Think about the last time you accomplished something significant. How many small actions led to that moment? Most major achievements consist of hundreds of tiny steps that often go unnoticed. Research shows that our brains are wired to respond positively to any form of progress, no matter how small. When you complete a task or reach a mini goal, your brain releases dopamine, creating a natural reward system that motivates you to continue. Marcus discovered this principle when he wanted to become more social after years of avoiding group conversations. Rather than forcing himself to attend large parties, he started with one small interaction each day. He would compliment a coworker, ask a cashier how their day was going, or send an encouraging text to a friend. After tracking these interactions for 2 weeks, he noticed something remarkable. Not only did talking to people become easier, but he also started looking forward to these brief connections. What tiny win could you achieve today that would move you closer to feeling more confident? The key is choosing actions so small that failure becomes nearly impossible. If you want to build confidence in public speaking, your tiny win might be speaking up once in a meeting. If you want to feel more confident about your appearance, it might be wearing one piece of clothing that makes you feel good. If you want to improve your skills, it might be spending 10 minutes learning something new. The tracking process amplifies the power of tiny wins. When Emma decided to tackle her fear of writing, She created a simple chart on her phone. Every day she wrote anything, even a single paragraph in her journal. She marked it with a green dot. Seeing those dots accumulate over weeks gave her visual proof of her consistency. After 2 months, she had enough confidence to share a short story with friends. The dots became her evidence that she was indeed a person who writes. Consider creating your own tracking system that fits your lifestyle. Some people prefer digital apps, while others enjoy the tactile experience of marking a calendar or notebook. The method matters less than the consistency. When you can see your progress accumulating, even tiny steps begin to feel significant. The celebration aspect of tiny wins often gets overlooked, yet it's crucial for building lasting confidence. Tom learned this lesson while building his presentation skills. Initially, he focused only on what went wrong after each presentation. When he shifted to acknowledging what went well, even small things like making good eye contact or speaking clearly for one section, his confidence began to grow. He started ending each presentation by writing down 3 things he did better than last time. How do you currently respond when you accomplish something small? Many people dismiss minor achievements as not enough, or immediately focus on what's next. This pattern actually undermines confidence building. Your brain needs time to register and internalize success, regardless of size. Pausing to acknowledge completion, even briefly, reinforces the neural pathways associated with capability and achievement. Building confidence through tiny wins requires shifting your attention from outcome to process. Instead of asking, "Did I achieve my big goal?" ask, "Did I take action today?" Lisa wanted to start her own business but felt overwhelmed by everything she needed to learn. She broke down her goal into daily actions, researching one competitor, writing one paragraph of her business plan, or learning one new skill. After 3 months of celebrating these small daily actions, she had completed her business plan and felt ready to take the next steps. The compound effect of tiny wins creates momentum that becomes increasingly powerful over time. Each small success makes the next one feel more achievable. When you prove to yourself that you can follow through on small commitments, you begin to trust yourself with bigger ones. This self-trust forms the foundation of genuine confidence. What daily practice could you commit to that would build evidence of your reliability to yourself? The practice itself matters less than your consistency in following through. Whether it's making your bed, writing 3 sentences, exercising for 5 minutes, or sending one networking email, the act of keeping promises to yourself builds the internal foundation that confidence requires. Part 2. Building brave habits. This section transforms your understanding of courage from a rare burst of heroism into a daily practice you can master. You will discover how small, consistent actions build an unshakable foundation of self-assurance. Through proven habit formation strategies and real-world examples, you will learn to weave confidence-building practices seamlessly into your routine. The practical tools and frameworks provided here will help you create a sustainable system for developing courage that grows stronger with each passing day. Your morning alarm rings at 6:30. For most people, this moment represents the start of another ordinary day. But for Elena, a marketing coordinator who transformed her confidence over 6 months, this moment became her daily opportunity to practice courage. Instead of checking her phone immediately, she began each morning by looking in the mirror and stating one thing she appreciated about herself. This simple 30-second habit became the foundation for much bigger changes in her life. The science behind habit formation reveals why Elena's approach worked so effectively. When you repeat the same action at the same time each day, your brain creates neural pathways that make the behavior automatic. Research shows that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit, but the key lies in starting so small that failure becomes nearly impossible. Consider how Tom, a shy accountant, built his confidence through micro-habits. He committed to making eye contact with one stranger each day while walking to work. This action lasted mere seconds, but required genuine courage. After 3 weeks, Tom found himself naturally engaging in brief conversations with coworkers. 6 months later, he volunteered to present quarterly reports to senior management. The progression from eye contact to boardroom presentations illustrates how brave habits compound over time. What single action could you take tomorrow that would require just a tiny bit of courage? The answer to this question becomes your starting point for building a confidence habit that will transform your life. The most effective courage-building habits fall into three categories: physical actions, mental practices, and social behaviors. Physical actions might include standing straighter, speaking louder, or taking up more space in meetings. Mental practices involve positive self-talk, visualization, or challenging negative thoughts. Social behaviors encompass initiating conversations, expressing opinions, or setting boundaries. Maya, a software developer, discovered the power of combining all three categories. Each morning, she practiced power poses for 2 minutes while reciting affirmations about her technical abilities. Throughout the day, she committed to asking at least one question in team meetings. This combination of physical, mental, and social practices created a comprehensive confidence-building system that supported her promotion to team lead within 8 months. The habit formation process follows a simple pattern: cue, routine, and reward. Your cue triggers the behavior, the routine is the action itself, and the reward reinforces the pattern. Elena used her alarm as a cue, looking in the mirror as her routine, and the positive feeling as her reward. This cycle became so automatic that she felt uncomfortable starting her day without this practice. Building brave habits requires strategic thinking about when and where you practice courage. Morning routines work well because your willpower is strongest after rest. However, some people find evening reflection more effective for processing courage-building experiences. The key is consistency rather than timing perfection. James, a restaurant manager, found his courage-building sweet spot during lunch breaks. He used this time to call one business contact, write one professional email, or introduce himself to one new person in his building. This midday practice energized him for afternoon challenges and created momentum that carried into his personal life. How might your current daily schedule accommodate small acts of courage? Identifying these windows of opportunity allows you to integrate brave habits without disrupting your existing routines. The most common mistake people make is attempting to build too many courage habits simultaneously. Research in behavioral psychology shows that focusing on one habit at a time increases success rates by over 60%. Once your first brave habit becomes automatic, you can layer additional practices onto your existing foundation. Success stories consistently show that small, consistent actions outperform sporadic, large efforts. Rachel, a graphic designer, spent months trying to build confidence through occasional networking events and public speaking workshops. These activities felt overwhelming, and she often skipped them. When she switched to writing one professional comment on LinkedIn each day, her confidence grew steadily. This daily practice led to meaningful connections, freelance opportunities, and eventually her own design consultancy. The transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. Your brave habits create compound interest in your confidence account. Each small action deposits courage that accumulates over time until you reach a tipping point where confidence feels natural rather than forced. Track your progress through simple methods that reinforce positive behavior. A habit tracking app, calendar checkmarks, or journal entries provide visual evidence of your commitment. This documentation serves dual purposes: maintaining accountability and celebrating consistency. Your Brave Habits Toolkit should include backup plans for challenging days. When Elena felt sick or stressed, she reduced her morning affirmation to simply saying thank you to her reflection. Tom modified his eye contact goal to nodding at one person when full conversations felt impossible. These modifications maintained the habit pattern while accommodating real-life circumstances. What obstacles might interfere with your courage-building practice, and how could you adapt without abandoning the habit entirely? Preparing for these challenges increases your likelihood of maintaining progress through difficult periods. The compound effect of brave habits extends beyond personal confidence into professional and relationship success. People who practice daily courage become more decisive, communicate more effectively, and inspire others through their example. Your small acts of bravery give others permission to be courageous too. HTML. Your transformation begins with tomorrow's first brave action. Part 3. Speaking up, standing tall. Daily courage transforms into a powerful foundation for finding your voice and speaking up in situations that matter. This section explores how to build assertiveness and self-expression skills that make you feel genuinely heard and respected. You will discover practical methods for communicating your needs, setting healthy boundaries, and sharing your ideas with confidence. Through real-world scenarios and simple exercises, you will learn to stand tall in conversations, express your truth authentically, and create meaningful connections with others. The journey from silent observer to confident communicator begins with understanding that your voice has value and deserves space in every room you enter. Amy discovered this truth during a team meeting where her brilliant solution sat unspoken while others struggled with a complex problem. For months, she had watched similar scenarios play out, always having the right answer, but never finding the courage to share it. Her breakthrough came when she realized that staying silent was actually doing a disservice to her team and herself. The transformation began with a simple practice. Amy started speaking up in lower-stakes situations first. She offered opinions about lunch choices, shared feedback on movies with friends, and asked clarifying questions in casual conversations. These small acts of self-expression built the neural pathways that would later support her in professional settings. Think about your own experiences. When do you find yourself holding back your thoughts or opinions? What stops you from speaking up when you have something valuable to contribute? Marcus faced a different challenge. His boss frequently interrupted him during presentations, and he struggled to reclaim his speaking time without appearing confrontational. He learned to use the pause and redirect technique. When interrupted, Marcus would pause, acknowledge the interruption politely, and then redirect attention back to his point by saying something like, "I appreciate that insight, and I would like to finish explaining the data analysis that supports this recommendation." This approach worked because it demonstrated respect while firmly maintaining his position. Marcus practiced this technique in front of a mirror and with trusted colleagues until it became natural. Within 3 months, interruptions decreased significantly because people recognized his calm assertiveness. Effective communication requires both speaking and listening skills working together. Elena learned this when her attempts to be more assertive initially came across as aggressive. She discovered that assertiveness without active listening often creates conflict rather than connection. The key difference lies in approach. Aggressive communication focuses on winning and being right. Assertive communication focuses on being understood and finding solutions. Elena began using the Feel Heard Need framework for difficult conversations. She would acknowledge how the other person might feel, demonstrate that she heard their perspective, and then clearly state her need or boundary. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me during meetings," Elena would say, "I notice we have different perspectives on this project. I heard your concerns about the timeline, and I need to share some information that might address those concerns. Could we take a few minutes to discuss both viewpoints?" Setting boundaries represents another crucial aspect of speaking up. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out, but rather guidelines that help others understand how to interact with you respectfully. They protect your time, energy, and well-being while maintaining positive relationships. Jasper struggled with saying no to extra projects at work. He feared disappointing his manager and colleagues, but the constant overcommitment was affecting his performance and personal life. He learned to use the acknowledge, explain, alternative approach for boundary setting. When asked to take on additional work, Jasper would acknowledge the request's importance, explain his current capacity honestly, and offer an alternative solution. He might say, "I understand this project is important for the team. I am currently committed to 2 other deadlines this week. I could take this on next week, or perhaps we could discuss which current priority might be shifted to accommodate this request." This approach showed respect for the request while clearly communicating his limits. Most importantly, it provided options rather than simply refusing to help. Have you ever noticed how some people command attention naturally when they speak? What specific behaviors make their communication so effective? Physical presence plays a significant role in how others receive your message. Research shows that 55% of communication impact comes from body language, 38% from tone of voice, and only 7% from actual words. Standing or sitting up straight, making appropriate eye contact, and using open gestures all contribute to confident communication. Priya transformed her professional presence by making small adjustments to her physical posture. She began arriving at meetings a few minutes early to settle into her space, chose seats where she could see everyone, and kept her hands visible on the table rather than hidden in her lap. These changes made her feel more grounded and helped others take her contributions more seriously. Voice modulation also matters significantly. Speaking too quietly signals uncertainty, while speaking too loudly can seem aggressive. The ideal approach involves varying your tone and pace to match your message. Important points benefit from slower delivery and slightly lower pitch, which conveys authority and thoughtfulness. HTML. Your voice carries more weight when you believe in its value. David discovered this when he began recording himself during practice presentations. He realized his voice rose in pitch when he felt nervous, making him sound less confident than he actually was. By practicing controlled breathing and speaking from his diaphragm, he developed a more commanding presence that matched his expertise. The compound effect of consistent self-expression creates remarkable changes over time. People who regularly practice speaking up become more comfortable with uncertainty, more skilled at reading social dynamics, and more effective at influencing positive outcomes. They also inspire others to find their voices, creating environments where everyone feels valued and heard. Your journey to confident self-expression begins with the next conversation you have. Choose one small way to speak up more clearly today, whether that means asking a clarifying question, sharing an opinion, or setting a gentle boundary. Each act of authentic expression builds the foundation for the confident communicator you are becoming. Part 4. Celebrating progress. Most people never take time to appreciate the ground they have covered on their confidence journey. This oversight robs them of powerful motivation and momentum that comes from recognizing growth. Learning to celebrate progress transforms how you view challenges and builds sustainable confidence habits. When you actively acknowledge your efforts and victories, you create a positive feedback loop that makes courage feel more natural and accessible. This section reveals practical ways to honor your growth and harness the motivational power of celebration. Recognition forms the foundation of lasting change. When you acknowledge your efforts, your brain registers positive associations with confident behavior. This biological response makes it easier to repeat brave actions in the future. Think of celebration as fuel for your confidence engine. Without it, even the most determined people eventually run out of steam. Emma discovered this truth during her first month of joining workplace meetings, after years of staying silent. Instead of focusing on how much further she had to go, she started writing down each time she spoke up. Her list included asking one clarifying question, agreeing with a colleague's point out loud, and sharing a brief opinion about a project timeline. These moments seemed small, but seeing them written down made her realize she had changed dramatically. Creating a progress tracking system requires minimal effort but delivers maximum impact. Choose a method that feels natural to you. Some people prefer simple notebooks where they record daily wins. Others use phone apps to track confident actions. The key is consistency, not perfection. David used a jar system that transformed his confidence journey. Each time he did something brave, he wrote it on a small piece of paper and dropped it in the jar. Taking a difficult phone call, introducing himself to a new neighbor, or expressing disagreement in a respectful way all earned paper slips. When discouragement hit, he would read through his collection and remember how far he had traveled. What would change if you could clearly see evidence of your growth every single day? Physical reminders make abstract progress concrete and undeniable. The timing of celebration matters more than the size of the gesture. Immediate recognition strengthens the connection between brave actions and positive feelings. When you wait too long to acknowledge progress, the motivational impact weakens significantly. Lisa learned to celebrate wins within minutes of achieving them. After presenting an idea in a team meeting, she would send herself a quick text message congratulating her effort. Following a difficult conversation with her manager, she bought herself a favorite coffee. These small celebrations created positive associations that made future brave actions feel more appealing. Sharing progress with others amplifies its impact. When you tell trusted friends or family members about your confident actions, you gain external validation and accountability. Choose people who understand your journey and genuinely support your growth. Marcus joined a small group of friends who met monthly to share personal wins. They called it their victory circle. Each person had 5 minutes to describe recent progress, however small. The group celebrated everything from making difficult phone calls to trying new activities. This shared celebration created bonds and motivation that individual recognition could not match. Different types of achievements deserve different forms of celebration. Small daily wins might earn simple acknowledgments like positive self-talk or a favorite snack. Weekly progress could warrant special activities like watching a movie or taking a relaxing bath. Major milestones deserve bigger recognition, such as dinner with friends or a small purchase you have been wanting. Creating celebration rituals makes recognition feel special and meaningful. Some people light candles and reflect on their progress. Others take photos to document their journey. The specific ritual matters less than the intention to pause and honor your efforts. How might your confidence grow if you treated every brave action as worthy of recognition? This shift in perspective transforms the entire experience of building confidence. Progress journaling provides lasting benefits beyond immediate motivation. Writing about your confident actions helps you identify patterns, track themes, and recognize growth over time. This practice also creates a permanent record you can revisit during challenging periods. Rachel kept a weekly confidence journal where she wrote about brave actions and the feelings they generated. Over months, she noticed patterns emerging. Mornings were her strongest time for difficult conversations. Group settings felt easier than one-on-one interactions. This self-knowledge helped her plan future challenges strategically. The language you use to describe progress shapes how you feel about it. Instead of minimizing achievements with words like just or only, use empowering language that honors your effort. Replace "I just asked one question" with "I actively participated in the discussion." This subtle shift makes progress feel more significant and worthy of celebration. Remember that confidence building involves internal victories as well as external actions. Choosing self-compassion over self-criticism deserves celebration. Recognizing negative thought patterns without acting on them represents real progress. Staying calm during stressful situations shows growth. These internal wins often require more courage than visible actions, but receive less recognition. Progress celebration works best when it becomes an automatic habit rather than an afterthought. Build recognition into your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth or checking email. This consistency ensures you never miss opportunities to reinforce positive behaviors and maintain motivation for continued growth. Your confidence journey consists of countless small moments of courage that deserve recognition. Each time you choose brave action over comfortable avoidance, you have earned celebration. This practice of honoring progress creates the momentum needed for lasting transformation and sustained confidence growth. Chapter 4. Growing from the Inside Out. Part 1. The Gift of Vulnerability. Most people think vulnerability means weakness, but research shows the opposite is true. When we share our real struggles and imperfections with others, we create deeper connections and build genuine confidence. This section reveals how opening up authentically becomes a powerful tool for personal growth. You will discover practical ways to share your true self, build trust with others, and transform vulnerability from a fear into your greatest strength. The freedom that comes from being real will surprise you. Lisa spent years crafting the perfect image at work. She never admitted mistakes, always appeared confident in meetings, and kept her personal struggles private. Despite her polished exterior, she felt isolated and exhausted from maintaining this facade. Her relationships remained surface level, and deep down, she questioned whether people truly liked her or just the version she presented. Everything changed when Lisa made a crucial mistake on a major project. Instead of covering it up, she decided to be honest with her team. She acknowledged the error, explained what went wrong, and outlined her plan to fix it. The response shocked her. Her colleagues appreciated her honesty and offered support. One teammate shared a similar mistake from their own past, creating an instant bond. This moment taught Lisa a fundamental truth about human connection. When we show our imperfections, we give others permission to be human too. Vulnerability creates space for authentic relationships to grow, and these genuine connections become the foundation for lasting confidence. Consider Marcus, a small business owner who struggled with public speaking. For months, he avoided networking events, fearing his nervousness would show. Finally, he attended a local business gathering and decided to be honest about his anxiety. He started conversations by saying, "I'm actually quite nervous about these events, but I'm trying to push myself." The response was overwhelmingly positive. Other business owners shared their own fears and offered encouragement. Marcus left with 3 new business contacts and a renewed sense of confidence. The science behind vulnerability reveals why it works so powerfully. When we share our authentic selves, our brains release oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. This chemical response creates feelings of trust and connection in both ourselves and others. Research shows that people who practice vulnerability report higher levels of self-esteem and stronger relationships. How often do you hide your true feelings to protect yourself from judgment? The irony is that this protection often prevents the very connections we crave. Building the courage to be vulnerable starts with small steps. Begin by sharing minor struggles with trusted friends or family members. Instead of saying "I'm fine" when asked how you are, try responding with honesty when appropriate. You might say, "I'm having a challenging week at work, but I'm working through it." Practice what researchers call graduated disclosure. This means sharing increasingly personal information as relationships develop trust over time. With a new acquaintance, you might mention feeling nervous about a presentation. With a close friend, you could discuss deeper fears about career changes or relationship concerns. Elena discovered this approach when she joined a hiking group. Initially, she only shared surface details about her life. As weeks passed and trust developed, she began opening up about her recent divorce and career transition. The group members responded with support and their own stories of change. What started as casual weekend hikes evolved into meaningful friendships that provided strength during difficult times. Timing matters significantly in vulnerable sharing. Choose moments when you feel emotionally stable and can handle various responses. Avoid sharing deeply personal information when you are overwhelmed or seeking immediate validation. The goal is authentic connection, not emotional dumping. Watch for reciprocal vulnerability in others. Healthy relationships involve mutual sharing over time. If you consistently open up while others remain closed, reassess the balance. True connection requires both people to take emotional risks. Physical cues often reveal when vulnerability creates connection versus discomfort. Notice if the other person leans in, maintains eye contact, and responds with their own sharing. These signals indicate safety and receptiveness. If someone becomes distracted or changes the subject quickly, respect their boundaries and adjust accordingly. What would change in your relationships if you allowed people to see the real you, including your struggles and imperfections? Creating safe spaces for vulnerability requires intentional effort. Start conversations with open-ended questions that invite deeper sharing. Instead of asking, "How was your day?" try, "What was the most challenging part of your week?" Or, "What are you excited about lately?" Listen without immediately offering solutions or judgments. Sometimes people need to be heard more than they need advice. Respond with phrases like, "That sounds really difficult," or "Thank you for sharing that with me." These simple acknowledgments validate their courage in opening up. James learned this lesson while supporting his teenage son through academic struggles. Instead of immediately offering solutions, James shared his own challenges with feeling inadequate at work. This vulnerability opened a dialogue where his son felt safe discussing fears about failure. Their relationship deepened significantly through this mutual honesty. Vulnerability also means setting healthy boundaries. Being open does not require sharing everything with everyone. Develop discernment about what to share, when, and with whom. Some information belongs only with your closest confidants, while other struggles can be shared more broadly. Professional environments require special consideration for vulnerable sharing. Focus on growth-oriented disclosure that demonstrates learning and resilience. Instead of dwelling on failures, frame them as valuable lessons that contributed to your development. This approach builds trust while maintaining professional credibility. Remember that vulnerability is a practice, not a destination. Some days you will feel brave enough to share deeply, while others call for stepping back and protecting your emotional energy. Both responses are valid and necessary for maintaining healthy relationships with yourself and others. The transformation that comes from authentic vulnerability extends far beyond individual relationships. When you model openness and authenticity, you create permission for others to do the same. This ripple effect builds communities where people feel valued for who they truly are, not just the images they project. Your willingness to be real becomes a gift not only to yourself, but to everyone around you. In a world often focused on perfection, your authenticity becomes a beacon of hope and connection for others seeking the same courage to be vulnerable. Part 2. Finding your tribe. The relationships you build and maintain will determine whether your confidence grows or withers away. Think of confidence as a plant that needs the right environment to flourish. While you can water it with self-care and personal growth, it truly thrives when surrounded by people who believe in your potential. Your social environment acts as either fertilizer that helps you bloom or poison that stunts your growth. The people closest to you shape how you see yourself, influence your decisions, and either encourage or discourage your dreams. Building a supportive network of relationships is not just nice to have, it is essential for developing lasting confidence. In this section, you will discover how to identify the right people to have in your corner, learn to step away from relationships that drain your energy, and create a community that lifts you higher than you ever imagined possible. When Emma started her career as a graphic designer, she surrounded herself with colleagues who constantly complained about their jobs, gossiped about clients, and dismissed her creative ideas as too ambitious. After 2 years in this environment, she found herself doubting her abilities and playing small. Everything changed when she joined a local design meetup group. There, she met other creatives who celebrated each other's successes, shared resources, and offered constructive feedback. Within 6 months, Emma had launched her freelance business and felt more confident than ever before. The people around you serve as mirrors, reflecting back either your potential or your limitations. Some relationships energize you and make you feel capable of achieving anything. Others leave you feeling drained, doubted, or diminished. The key is learning to recognize the difference and making conscious choices about who gets access to your time and energy. Think about the last conversation you had with someone who makes you feel good about yourself. How did you feel afterward? Now contrast that with how you feel after spending time with someone who consistently brings negative energy into your life. The difference is probably striking. Your inner circle should consist of people who genuinely want to see you succeed. These are individuals who cheer for your victories, offer support during challenging times, and believe in your abilities even when you struggle to believe in yourself. They provide honest feedback without tearing you down and encourage you to take risks that lead to growth. Consider the story of Marcus, a shy accounting student who dreamed of starting his own consulting firm. His family constantly reminded him that entrepreneurship was risky and that he should stick to a stable job. Meanwhile, his study group partner Alex encouraged Marcus to attend business networking events and even introduced him to other young entrepreneurs. Alex's consistent support and belief in Marcus's abilities gave him the courage to pursue his dreams. 5 years later, Marcus runs a successful consulting business and credits Alex's encouragement as a turning point in his journey. Building your support network requires intentional effort and clear boundaries. Start by identifying the types of relationships you need in your life. You need cheerleaders who celebrate your wins, mentors who guide your growth, peers who understand your challenges, and champions who advocate for your success. What kind of support do you need most right now in your life? Is it someone who believes in your dreams, offers practical advice, or simply listens without judgment? Look for people who exhibit certain qualities that nurture confidence. They listen without immediately offering solutions or judgment. They ask thoughtful questions that help you think through challenges. They share their own struggles and victories honestly, creating an environment of mutual support. They respect your boundaries and encourage you to set them with others. The process of finding these people often starts with being the kind of person you want to attract. When you show genuine interest in others' success, offer support without expecting anything in return, and maintain a positive attitude even during difficult times, you naturally draw similar people into your orbit. Digital communities can also provide valuable support when local options are limited. Online groups, professional networks, and social media communities centered around your interests or goals can offer encouragement and practical advice. The key is finding spaces where constructive dialogue and mutual support are the norm, rather than comparison and criticism. However, building a supportive network also means learning to distance yourself from relationships that consistently undermine your confidence. These toxic relationships come in many forms. Some people consistently criticize your ideas or decisions. Others compete with you rather than support you. Some friends might seem supportive, but actually discourage you from taking risks or pursuing goals that would help you grow. Rachel discovered this truth when she decided to return to school for her master's degree. Her longtime friend Lisa constantly questioned her decision, pointed out the challenges she would face, and reminded her of her previous academic struggles. These conversations left Rachel feeling anxious and unsure about her choice. When Rachel began limiting her contact with Lisa and spending more time with classmates who encouraged her academic journey, her confidence in her decision returned. Stepping away from toxic relationships requires courage and clear boundaries. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your time and energy, especially if they consistently leave you feeling worse about yourself. Sometimes you can limit contact with negative people rather than cutting them off completely. Other times, particularly when someone's behavior is consistently harmful, a clean break becomes necessary. The process of building your support network is not about collecting as many relationships as possible. Quality matters far more than quantity. 3 people who genuinely support your growth and believe in your potential are worth more than 30 casual acquaintances who drain your energy or dismiss your dreams. How might your life change if you spent more time with people who truly believe in your potential? Your support network will evolve as you grow and change. The people who encourage you during one phase of life might not be the same ones who support you through different challenges. This natural evolution is healthy and expected. The goal is maintaining relationships that serve your highest good while being willing to let go of those that no longer fit who you are becoming. Creating systems to nurture your positive relationships helps ensure they continue to flourish. Regular check-ins, celebrating each other's successes, and offering support during difficult times strengthens these bonds. Simple gestures like sending an encouraging text message, sharing an article that might interest them, or remembering important events in their lives shows that you value the relationship. Remember that confidence is contagious. When you surround yourself with confident, supportive people, their energy lifts you up and makes your own confidence stronger. Similarly, your growing confidence will inspire and encourage others around you, creating a positive cycle that benefits everyone involved. The relationships you choose to nurture and maintain will largely determine whether your confidence journey leads to lasting transformation or temporary improvement. Choose wisely, invest in connections that serve your growth, and watch as your confidence flourishes in the fertile ground of genuine support and encouragement. Part 3. Bouncing back from setbacks. Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. The promotion you were certain about goes to someone else. The business venture you poured your heart into fails. The relationship you thought would last forever ends abruptly. These moments can shake us to our core, making us question our abilities and worth. However, the most confident people share a common trait. They know how to bounce back from setbacks stronger than before. This section reveals the mental strategies and practical tools that transform defeats into stepping stones, teaching you to build resilience, that becomes the foundation for unshakable confidence. When Emma received the rejection email for her dream job, she felt like her world collapsed. She had prepared for weeks, visualizing herself in that role, telling friends about the opportunity. The sting of disappointment was overwhelming. Like many people, her first instinct was to retreat and question everything about herself. Was she not qualified enough? Did she say something wrong during the interview? This internal dialogue represents a critical moment that determines whether setbacks become learning experiences or sources of lasting self-doubt. The difference between people who recover quickly from setbacks and those who remain stuck lies in how they interpret failure. Research shows that individuals with high resilience view setbacks as temporary, specific, and external rather than permanent, personal, and pervasive. Instead of thinking I'm not good enough for any job, they think this particular job wasn't the right fit at this time. Marcus discovered this principle firsthand when his small restaurant closed after only 8 months. Initially devastated, he spent weeks replaying every decision, wondering if he was cut out for entrepreneurship. The turning point came when he shifted his focus from what went wrong to what he learned. He realized the location was poor, his target market was unclear, and his financial planning needed work. These weren't character flaws, but specific skills he could develop. What setbacks in your life might actually contain valuable lessons you haven't fully extracted yet? The process of bouncing back begins with acknowledgement rather than avoidance. Many people try to quickly move past disappointments, but this prevents them from gaining the insights that make future success more likely. Confident people allow themselves to feel the disappointment fully while maintaining perspective about what it means. Creating a structured approach to processing setbacks can accelerate recovery. The first step involves separating facts from emotions. When Lisa's startup pitch was rejected by 12 investors, she initially felt like a complete failure. However, when she wrote down the actual feedback she received, patterns emerged. Several investors mentioned concerns about market timing, while others questioned her team's technical expertise. These were specific, actionable areas for improvement rather than indictments of her overall potential. The second step requires honest self-reflection without self-attack. This means asking, what could I do differently next time, instead of why am I so incompetent? The language we use during this reflection shapes whether the experience builds or diminishes our confidence. Self-compassionate analysis leads to growth, while harsh self-criticism leads to paralysis. Consider how you typically talk to yourself after a disappointment. Would you speak to a good friend the same way? Reframing setbacks as experiments rather than tests changes everything. In an experiment, unexpected results provide valuable data. When James applied this mindset to his failed attempts at learning Spanish, his confidence grew instead of shrinking. Each mistake became information about what methods worked best for his learning style. This shift from judgment to curiosity transforms the entire experience of facing challenges. The most resilient people also develop what researchers call benefit finding, the ability to identify positive outcomes that emerge from negative experiences. This doesn't mean pretending that bad things are good, but rather recognizing genuine growth that occurs through adversity. After her divorce, Patricia initially felt like her life was ruined. Over time, she realized the experience taught her to rely on herself, helped her clarify her values, and deepened her empathy for others facing difficult transitions. Practical resilience also requires building what psychologists call psychological resources before setbacks occur. These include strong relationships, regular self-care practices, and diverse sources of identity and meaning. When people derive their entire sense of worth from one area of life, setbacks in that area can feel catastrophic. However, when confidence is spread across multiple domains, challenges in one area feel more manageable. The role of hope in bouncing back cannot be overstated. Hope isn't naive optimism, but rather a realistic belief that effort can lead to improvement. This requires developing what researchers call pathways thinking, the ability to generate multiple strategies for reaching goals. When one approach doesn't work, hopeful people naturally consider alternatives rather than giving up entirely. Building resilience also involves expanding your definition of success. Many people operate with narrow, all-or-nothing definitions that make any deviation feel like failure. However, confident people recognize progress in many forms. Getting closer to a goal, learning valuable skills, building important relationships, or simply maintaining effort during difficult times all represent meaningful achievements. The practice of implementation intentions can prevent setbacks from derailing progress entirely. This involves deciding in advance how you'll respond when things don't go as planned. For example, if I don't get this promotion, I will ask for specific feedback and create a development plan. Or if this business idea doesn't work, I will analyze what I learned and consider 3 alternative approaches. Recovery from setbacks often requires adjusting timelines rather than abandoning goals entirely. When Rachel's first novel was rejected by publishers, she felt tempted to quit writing altogether. Instead, she gave herself permission to take longer to develop her craft. She joined a writing group, took courses, and worked on shorter pieces to build her skills. 2 years later, her second novel found a publisher. The delay wasn't a detour, but rather a necessary part of her journey. How might giving yourself more time and patience change your relationship with current challenges? The stories we tell ourselves about setbacks become self-fulfilling prophecies. People who frame difficulties as evidence of their inadequacy often give up prematurely. However, those who view challenges as normal parts of any worthwhile journey persist longer and ultimately achieve more. This narrative flexibility represents a learnable skill that dramatically impacts long-term confidence. Finally, remember that resilience builds through practice, not theory. Each time you successfully navigate a setback, you create evidence of your ability to overcome challenges. This evidence becomes a resource you can draw upon during future difficulties. The confidence that emerges from knowing you can handle whatever life presents represents the most stable and powerful form of self-assurance. Part 4. Confidence for life. Sustaining confidence throughout your entire life requires a fundamentally different approach than building it in the first place. While initial confidence often comes from specific achievements or external validation, lasting confidence emerges from your relationship with change itself. This section explores how to maintain and deepen your self-assurance across decades, through career transitions, relationship changes, health challenges, and the natural evolution of who you are. You will discover practical frameworks for continuous growth, learn to view confidence as a renewable resource rather than a fixed trait, and develop the mental flexibility needed to thrive in an ever-changing world. Real confidence operates like a renewable energy source rather than a battery that eventually runs out. Consider Maya, a successful architect who felt confident in her 20s because she excelled at traditional design projects. When sustainable architecture became the industry standard in her 40s, she initially felt threatened. Instead of clinging to old methods, she chose to see this shift as an opportunity to grow. She enrolled in environmental design courses, sought mentorship from younger colleagues, and gradually rebuilt her expertise. This adaptation actually strengthened her confidence because she proved to herself that she could learn and evolve. The key difference between Maya and colleagues who struggled during this transition was her relationship with learning itself. She viewed not knowing something as temporary rather than permanent. This growth mindset became her foundation for lifelong confidence. When you believe abilities can be developed through effort and strategy, setbacks become data points rather than verdicts about your worth. How do you currently react when you encounter something you do not understand? Do you see it as a threat to your competence or as an invitation to grow? Lifelong confidence requires regular maintenance through 3 essential practices. First, conduct quarterly confidence audits, where you honestly assess which areas of your life energize you and which drain your self-assurance. This might involve examining your relationships, work environment, health habits, and personal goals. Second, actively seek feedback from trusted sources about your blind spots and growth opportunities. Third, deliberately expose yourself to manageable challenges that stretch your capabilities without overwhelming you. Marcus, a marketing executive, implemented these practices after realizing his confidence had become brittle. He was excellent at familiar tasks, but anxious about anything new. During his first quarterly audit, he discovered that his confidence was entirely tied to his expertise in traditional advertising. He began taking small risks like volunteering to lead digital marketing initiatives and attending conferences outside his specialty. Each successful navigation of unfamiliar territory added flexibility to his confidence. The most sustainable confidence comes from trusting your ability to figure things out rather than from already knowing everything. This shift in perspective transforms uncertainty from an enemy into a neutral fact of life. When Elena started her own consulting business at 52, she did not know how to create a website, manage finances, or develop client contracts. Instead of waiting until she mastered these skills, she committed to learning as she went. She hired a web designer for the initial setup, but insisted on learning basic maintenance. She used accounting software with tutorial support rather than outsourcing everything to a bookkeeper. This approach built her confidence in her learning ability rather than just her business skills. What would you attempt if you trusted your ability to learn whatever skills you needed along the way? Change inevitably challenges confidence, but your response to change determines whether these challenges strengthen or weaken you. Research shows that people who maintain confidence across major life transitions share common characteristics. They view identity as flexible rather than fixed, seeing themselves as people who grow and adapt rather than people with unchanging traits. They also maintain what psychologists call identity diversification, by cultivating multiple sources of self-worth rather than depending on a single role or achievement. Consider Robert, whose identity was deeply tied to being a high-performing sales director. When his company downsized and eliminated his position at age 55, he initially felt his entire sense of self crumble. However, he gradually recognized other aspects of his identity he had neglected. He was also a mentor to younger colleagues, a community volunteer, a father, and someone who had successfully navigated previous career transitions. By expanding his self-concept beyond just his job title, he rebuilt confidence that could weather future changes. Building identity diversification requires intentional effort. Start by listing all the roles you play in life, including informal ones like friend, problem solver, or creative thinker. Then consider which skills transfer across different contexts. Robert realized his ability to understand customer needs applied to volunteer work with seniors and to supporting his teenage children through college decisions. This recognition helped him see that losing one job did not eliminate his core capabilities. The practice of lifelong confidence also requires what researchers call confidence flexibility, the ability to calibrate your self-assurance appropriately to different situations. Overconfidence in unfamiliar territory creates problems, while underconfidence in areas of genuine competence wastes opportunities. Developing this calibration takes honest self-assessment and willingness to adjust your approach based on evidence. Lisa, a financial advisor, learned this lesson when she expanded her practice to include retirement planning for small business owners. Her confidence in traditional investment advice was well-founded, but she initially overestimated her expertise in business tax implications. Rather than pretending to know more than she did, she began partnering with tax professionals and being transparent with clients about the limits of her knowledge. This honesty actually increased client trust and allowed her to build genuine expertise over time. Creating systems for continuous learning prevents confidence from becoming stagnant. This might involve reading industry publications, attending workshops, seeking new responsibilities at work, or pursuing hobbies that challenge you mentally. The specific activities matter less than maintaining the habit of growth. When you regularly engage with new information and skills, you train yourself to be comfortable with not knowing everything immediately. Your relationship with failure also evolves as confidence matures. Instead of avoiding failure or viewing it as evidence of inadequacy, confident people develop what researchers call failure fluency, the ability to extract learning quickly from setbacks and move forward without unnecessary self-criticism. This skill becomes particularly important as life presents more complex challenges that cannot be solved with existing knowledge alone. Remember that confidence is not about feeling certain all the time, Mature confidence includes the ability to act effectively despite uncertainty, to maintain self-respect during difficult periods, and to trust that you can handle whatever situations arise. This trust develops through accumulated evidence of your ability to learn, adapt, and persevere through various life challenges. As you continue this lifelong journey, view each decade as an opportunity to deepen rather than just maintain your confidence. The confidence of your 20s, built on potential and early achievements, can evolve into the confidence of your 30s, grounded in proven competence. This can further develop into the confidence of your 40s and beyond, based on demonstrated resilience and wisdom gained through experience. Each stage offers unique opportunities for growth if you remain open to learning and change. Chapter 5. The Journey Continues. Part 1. Keeping the Flame Alive. Building confidence is like tending a garden. It requires ongoing care, attention, and the right conditions to flourish. Many people experience early wins in their confidence journey, only to find their progress stalling weeks or months later. This section provides practical strategies for maintaining momentum when motivation fades and shows how to transform confidence from a temporary feeling into a permanent part of who you are. You will discover how to set evolving goals, conduct meaningful self-assessments, and reignite your passion when it dims. Confidence isn't a destination you reach once and stay at forever. Think of it like physical fitness. You don't stop exercising after reaching your target weight. The same principle applies to confidence building. Without consistent practice and nurturing, even the strongest confidence can begin to fade. Emma discovered this truth firsthand. After 6 months of practicing public speaking, she felt ready to take on any presentation. But when her company asked her to speak at a major conference, she found her old fears creeping back. What had changed? She had stopped her regular practice routine and daily confidence-building habits. The confidence plateau happens to almost everyone. You make initial progress, feel good about your achievements, then notice your growth slowing down. This isn't failure. It's a natural part of the process that signals it's time to level up your approach. Regular self-check-ins serve as your confidence compass. Schedule a weekly 15-minute session to assess where you stand. Ask yourself what victories you've had, what challenges you're facing, and what adjustments you need to make. Marcus, a sales manager, credits his monthly confidence reviews with helping him maintain steady progress over 3 years. Your why, the deep reason behind your confidence journey, needs regular refreshing. The motivation that started your journey might not be enough to sustain you long-term. Lisa began building confidence to improve her career prospects, but as she grew, her why evolved to include becoming a role model for her teenage daughter. What has changed about your motivations since you first started working on your confidence? Take time to rediscover what drives you now, not what drove you months ago. Goal evolution keeps your confidence journey fresh and challenging. Once you master speaking up in meetings, your next goal might be leading presentations. When you become comfortable with presentations, you might aim to facilitate workshops. Each level builds on the previous one while introducing new challenges. The key is setting goals that stretch you without overwhelming you. Follow the 20% rule. Make your next goal about 20% more challenging than your current comfort zone. This creates enough stretch to promote growth without triggering paralyzing fear. Confidence plateaus often stem from becoming too comfortable with your current level. Jake, a software developer, felt stuck after successfully handling team meetings for several months. His breakthrough came when he volunteered to present to the executive team, a challenge that reignited his growth. When enthusiasm wanes, return to the basics that first built your confidence. Review your early wins, practice foundational exercises, and reconnect with the small daily habits that created your initial momentum. Sometimes stepping back allows you to move forward with renewed energy. Create a confidence renewal ritual for times when motivation dips. This might include reading your success journal, practicing power poses, or calling a supportive friend. Having a predetermined plan prevents you from making decisions when you're feeling low. The most successful confidence builders treat their practice like athletes treat training: consistent, varied, and progressive. They don't wait for inspiration to strike. They show up even when they don't feel like it, knowing that action creates confidence, not the other way around. Make confidence a living part of your daily routine by weaving small practices throughout your day. This transforms confidence from something you work on occasionally into something you live continuously, helping others shine. Building confidence becomes a living force when you extend it beyond yourself to lift others around you. The most remarkable transformation happens not just when you develop your own self-assurance, but when you actively help others discover theirs. This creates a powerful cycle where your own confidence grows stronger through the act of empowering others. The practice of supporting others in their confidence journey offers unexpected rewards, deeper relationships, enhanced leadership skills, and a profound sense of purpose that reinforces your own growth in ways you never imagined possible. When Elena started her marketing career, she struggled with imposter syndrome and barely spoke up in meetings. After months of building her confidence through small daily actions, she noticed her colleague Jamie facing similar challenges. Instead of staying silent, Elena began sharing her own stories of overcoming self-doubt. She offered genuine encouragement when Jamie presented ideas and celebrated small wins together. This simple act of mentorship transformed both their careers. Jamie gained courage to propose innovative campaigns, while Elena discovered her natural leadership abilities. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something fascinating about human psychology. When we actively support others, our brains release oxytocin and dopamine, chemicals that strengthen our own sense of well-being and self-worth. This biological response explains why helping others feel confident naturally boosts our own confidence levels. The act of mentoring forces us to articulate what we've learned, reinforcing our own knowledge and progress. Consider how this plays out in everyday situations. When you encourage a nervous coworker before a presentation, you remind yourself of your own presentation skills. When you share strategies that worked for you, you reinforce those lessons in your own mind. The teaching process creates a feedback loop that strengthens both parties involved. What confidence challenges are you currently facing that someone else might benefit from hearing about? Your struggles and victories contain valuable lessons for others walking similar paths. Marcus, a software developer, discovered this principle accidentally during a company hackathon. He noticed a junior developer, Priya, hesitating to share her ideas despite having innovative solutions. Marcus remembered his own early career fears and decided to act. He privately encouraged Priya to speak up, shared his own story of overcoming technical anxiety, and offered to support her during the presentation. Priya's confidence soared. Her idea won the competition, and Marcus found himself naturally taking on more leadership responsibilities within his team. The ripple effect of confidence support extends far beyond individual interactions. When you help one person build confidence, they often pass that energy forward to others. This creates expanding circles of positive influence that can transform entire workplaces, communities, and families. Research shows that teams with confidence-supporting cultures achieve higher performance levels and report greater job satisfaction. Creating this supportive environment starts with small, intentional actions. Share your own vulnerability stories when appropriate. Acknowledge others' contributions specifically, rather than offering generic praise. Ask thoughtful questions that help people recognize their own strengths. Celebrate progress, not just achievements. These simple behaviors create psychological safety that allows confidence to flourish naturally. The mentorship process also provides valuable perspective on your own growth journey. When you help others identify their limiting beliefs, you become more aware of your own remaining blind spots. When you guide someone through fear-based decisions, you reinforce your own courage-building practices. The teaching role creates objectivity about confidence building that benefits both mentor and mentee. How might your current confidence level impact the people around you? And what responsibility do you feel to model positive self-assurance? Real transformation happens when you make encouraging others a consistent habit rather than an occasional gesture. This might involve regularly checking in with struggling colleagues, volunteering to mentor newcomers, or simply practicing active listening when friends share their doubts. The key lies in authenticity. people respond to genuine support rather than hollow cheerleading. The confidence you build through helping others creates a different quality of self-assurance than individual achievement alone. It develops what researchers call other-focused confidence, a secure sense of self that comes from contributing to something larger than personal success. This type of confidence proves more resilient during difficult times because it's rooted in purpose and connection rather than individual performance. Your own confidence story becomes a powerful tool for inspiring others when shared thoughtfully. The struggles you've overcome, the strategies that worked, and even the setbacks you've experienced all contain valuable insights for someone else. The vulnerability required to share these stories paradoxically strengthens your own confidence while providing roadmaps for others to follow. Part 3. Writing your next chapter. The journey toward confidence doesn't end when you achieve your first breakthrough or help someone else find their strength. Instead, these moments mark the beginning of new possibilities. Consider confidence as a story that continues to unfold, with each chapter building upon the last while introducing fresh challenges and opportunities. This ongoing narrative requires intentional reflection about where you've been and thoughtful planning about where you want to go. The process of writing your next chapter involves examining your growth patterns, identifying emerging interests, and setting intentions that align with your evolving sense of self. Lisa discovered this truth after spending months building her public speaking confidence. She had successfully delivered presentations at work and even volunteered to speak at community events. Yet instead of feeling complete, she found herself wondering what other areas of her life could benefit from this newfound courage. Her confidence in speaking had opened doors to leadership opportunities she had never considered before. The question became not whether she was confident enough, but how she could channel this confidence into new directions. The process begins with honest reflection about your current state. What confidence wins have you experienced recently? Which areas of your life feel most secure, and which still trigger self-doubt? This assessment isn't about judgment, but about understanding your confidence landscape. Think of it as taking inventory before planning your next adventure. How would you describe the person you've become compared to who you were when you first started building confidence? Research shows that people who regularly reflect on their progress maintain higher levels of motivation and continue growing long after others plateau. This reflection process works best when you examine both your successes and your setbacks. The struggles you've overcome contain valuable information about your resilience patterns. The strategies that worked reveal your natural strengths and preferred learning styles. Marcus kept a simple weekly journal where he noted confidence-related experiences. After 6 months, he noticed patterns he had missed in the moment. He performed best when he prepared thoroughly but didn't over-rehearse. He recovered faster from setbacks when he talked through them with trusted friends rather than analyzing them alone. These insights helped him approach new challenges with better strategies. The next step involves expanding your vision beyond current limitations. Dreams and aspirations often hide behind practical concerns and past failures. What would you attempt if you knew you couldn't fail? Which activities make you lose track of time? What compliments do you receive that you typically dismiss? These questions point toward areas where your natural confidence might flourish with proper attention. Setting intentions differs from setting traditional goals. While goals focus on specific outcomes, intentions focus on how you want to show up in the world. An intention might be to approach new opportunities with curiosity rather than fear, or to speak up in meetings when you have valuable input. These intentions create frameworks for decision-making rather than rigid targets to achieve. Consider Emma, who realized her intention was to contribute more meaningfully at work. Rather than setting a goal to get promoted, she focused on showing up as someone who added value to every project. This shift in perspective led her to volunteer for challenging assignments, share ideas more freely, and collaborate with colleagues she had previously avoided. The promotion came naturally as a result of her changed approach. The unknown aspects of your future don't have to feel threatening. Treating uncertainty as an adventure rather than a problem changes how you respond to unexpected opportunities. This mindset shift requires practice, especially if you tend toward perfectionism or control. Start small by saying yes to invitations that normally make you hesitate, or by exploring subjects that intrigue you without worrying about becoming an expert. What aspects of the unknown excite you rather than scare you? Your evolving confidence story benefits from documentation. Writing about your experiences, whether in a journal, blog, or even letters to yourself, helps process complex emotions and track subtle changes over time. The act of putting experiences into words often reveals insights that remain hidden in busy minds. Create regular check-ins with yourself, perhaps monthly or quarterly, to assess how your confidence is developing. Ask yourself what's working, what's challenging, and what you want to explore next. These conversations with yourself become the foundation for writing each new chapter with intention and awareness. Remember that confidence building is not a linear process. Some chapters of your story might focus on consolidating gains, while others push into entirely new territories. Both types of chapters have value in your ongoing narrative. The key is maintaining curiosity about your own potential while staying grounded in the progress you've already made. Part 4. Your Confidence Toolkit. Building confidence requires more than good intentions and positive thinking. It demands a practical system of tools, habits, and mindsets that you can access whenever doubt creeps in or challenges arise. Think of this toolkit as your personal confidence companion, ready to support you whether you're facing a difficult conversation at work, stepping into a new role, or simply navigating an ordinary day that feels overwhelming. These resources have been tested by countless individuals who transform their self-doubt into steady assurance, and they're designed to work in real-world situations where theory meets practice. The foundation of your toolkit starts with daily confidence builders that require minimal time but create maximum impact. Begin each morning by identifying 3 specific things you handled well the previous day, no matter how small. Lisa, a shy accountant, started this practice by acknowledging simple victories like speaking up in a team meeting or helping a colleague with a spreadsheet formula. Within 6 weeks, she noticed herself naturally seeking more opportunities to contribute rather than hiding in the background. Your physical presence speaks before you do, making body language adjustments essential tools in your confidence arsenal. Practice what researchers call power poses for 2 minutes before important events. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, hands on your hips, and chest open. This simple adjustment sends signals to your brain that increase confidence hormones while reducing stress chemicals. Marcus, a sales representative, used this technique in his car before client meetings and saw his closing rate improve by 30% within 3 months. When negative self-talk emerges, deploy the evidence technique immediately. Challenge each critical thought by asking yourself what proof supports this belief and what evidence contradicts it. Write down both sides objectively, as if you were helping a friend evaluate the situation. Most people discover their inner critic operates on assumptions rather than facts. Quick reference: the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. For moments of acute anxiety or self-doubt, use this sensory grounding method. Identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This technique pulls your mind away from spinning thoughts and anchors it in the present moment where you have control. Your confidence toolkit must include strategies for handling setbacks because they're inevitable parts of growth. When you experience a failure or rejection, implement the learning extraction process within 24 hours. Ask yourself 3 questions. What worked well in this situation? What would you do differently next time? What skill or knowledge would have changed the outcome? This approach transforms disappointments into valuable data for future success. How often do you celebrate your progress, even the small steps forward? Create a confidence journal where you record weekly wins, challenges overcome, and lessons learned. Rachel, a marketing manager, kept hers on her phone and reviewed it before job interviews. Reading about her past successes reminded her of her capabilities when doubt threatened to derail her confidence. Build your support network systematically by identifying 3 people who believe in your potential and one person whose confidence you admire. Schedule regular check-ins with supporters and observe how confident individuals handle challenges in their lives. Confidence grows faster in community than in isolation. Your emergency confidence kit should include prepared responses for common situations that typically shake your confidence. Practice introducing yourself confidently, asking for help professionally, and accepting compliments gracefully. When Oliver, a software developer, rehearsed these scenarios, he stopped avoiding networking events and began building relationships that advanced his career. Remember that confidence is a practice, not a destination. Keep these tools accessible and use them consistently, adapting them to fit your unique circumstances and challenges as they evolve.